Video games, the education of the future. My topic is why our current education system is kind of broken and why we need to fix it, and how I think video games are a good way to solve this issue. I'm just gonna quickly talk about what's wrong with our current school system. Then I'm gonna talk about how video games have risen in popularity over the past couple of years, and why I think they're a fantastic medium and why I think they're here to stay. And then I'm going to explain why games are a great way to learn and a great way to put them in schools. I'll continue on to talk about how video games could really improve the flow of the classroom and how it would elevate the teacher's weight of putting less pressure on them and being able to interact with the students more. And I want to talk about what sort of issues could also be involved with making this change. And I also want to touch on what video games really pull out of you. It's not only what they give you, it's what you give to other people and things else that you are passionate about that games help you realize, I feel. What's wrong with the current education system is honestly it just needs to change. The education system really hasn't changed in over 200 years, and it is effective, it works, but it's a system that's meant to be good for everyone. So in that light, if it's good for everyone, means it's probably not perfect for anyone, and I think that needs to change. And it's the main problem is with the rise of the information age and the internet, just knowing things offhand is not as important as it used to be, and the way we all learn is very different. For things like knowing facts is not as much as a big deal as it used to be, whereas with the internet you can just look it all up. Also with the internet, it's just such a vast resource. It has so many facets. It's mind-blowing how much information you can access on the internet. It's just mind-blowing. The current way we're taught in schools is just kind of putting your nose to the grindstone and just regurgitating facts on a test, and that's just not a good way to learn. And just basically what needs to change is we need to have a system that benefits everyone in their own way. And this also will help some students that are having trouble finding who they are. Finding what you love and who you are is part of growing up, and I think school can help with that. When you find what you love and how you learn to learn is part of that. Video games have been around, basic video games have been around in the early 60s, but they didn't really become popular in the 70s, until the 70s, sorry. 70s really when the arcade revolution started, and it's just craziness with Pac-Man and Pong and Donkey Kong, all that stuff. It's really when video games hit their stride. People started playing these games for hours and hours and spending like weeks of their time just perfecting these games. In the 80s, they real rise of home consoles. That's when the Atari started. I think it was a little after the Atari came out. And certain companies just started pumping out games. And they weren't very good games, and gamers realized that. Gamers are not people that are going to be fooled by a faulty product. I mean, if it's not a good game, we're not going to support it. And there was a crash in the late 80s when over 80% of video games profit in the entire industry just dropped off. And it didn't really come back until the mid 90s with the rise of Doom, Quake, and all the really competitive hardcore shooters started coming out. And now with modern games, it's just such a vast genre. Calling them video games is not even what you call them. I mean, they're not really games anymore. I'd more classify them as interactive experiences. Just some quick stats are just like over 60% of households have at least one sort of game console. Average age of players is 34. And I think over 40% of the gaming population is female. So that's a huge plus because gamers have always been classified as the, I don't even know what to, just the horny teenage lowlife that lives in their mom's basement or whatever. But it's great to see games being what they need to be. That's a interactive medium that everyone should enjoy. Video games are a great learning tool. Video games are essentially a teaching tool. When you're playing a game, you are learning a skill. You are learning how to play the game. That is the entire point of the game. Its core mechanics is it has to teach you how to play it correctly and how to make that engaging and keep continuing it to be engaging. Another point about video games to make them a great learning tool, they give you agency, which means you have the power, you feel in control. A lot of students like myself never felt in control while in school. Never felt like they had any real choice on what they were doing. Till I took a class called Digital Media that really opened my horizons to what I could be doing with my life, and it's really drove me to be who I am today. The other part of games that makes them a great learning tool is it's all about the play. And play cannot be, you can't have play unless it's voluntary. You can't force someone to play. That's physically, it's just not possible. Games have this gimmick that is called pleasantly frustrating. Games will teach you something, such as a skill or how to do a certain thing in the game, and they'll test you on it and test you on it, and keep coming up with that until you say come to a boss, and then they're gonna push you. They're gonna push you in to see how far you can go. If you don't win, you're gonna go back and try again and keep trying. It's called pleasantly frustrating because it's not so hard like you feel you're being cheated, but it is still a challenge. That's the thing. You can take risks. You can try new things without feel like if you don't succeed, there will be severe consequences in your life. Like, I probably would not have ventured out into making video games if I didn't ever try making them. I mean, I started making games when I was 16 and I just loved it. And the biggest part of games is customization. You get to be whoever you want, even if not all games are going to have the same level of customization, but in your own way, you are making the game your own. How games make classrooms easier for teachers is it's not replacing the teacher. It's giving the teacher room to not just give you the information. They're there to help you understand it. And with normal schooling, if you give out homework, a teacher will get it, and they won't really be able to give you any feedback on it till the next week, and you've already moved on to the next topic. With games, you get instant feedback back. Doing something wrong, you know it immediately. With games, you could make the classroom completely modular. Like, you can make it however the child learns or however they need to be able to learn, which makes you have more free time, so you have more one-on-one with the student, giving them a lot more time to really interact and have a positive experience in school rather than a negative one like I feel a lot of students have nowadays. Along with customizing how they learn, you customize their homework. Billy learns through hands-on learning and Vanessa learns through visual learning. They'll have different types that the game can just analyze and spit out a different assignments for each student. It really just gives them the freedom of choice of however they want to view it. The issues with games is in education is pushing it for the public, because this is something that will take a while to go through. It would take many years to implement completely, and many years to even come up with in the first place. The public's view on video games is quite negative, and even in the video game industry, they've kind of become two different sides of the game industry. There have been fun video games, the kind that you play on your Xbox, and then there's edutainment, which is games that also teach you things. And the industry is kind of split, and I believe with a bit of a combination effort, we could come up with a good way to make a good learning experience for a child. The other thing is, a lot of people believe that games stole your mind and it's just mindless violence. And back in the 90s, that might have been true, but currently, it's not just mindless violence. It's how you express yourself, and it's not the violence you're paying attention to, it's the competition that you enjoy. And games don't dull your mind, they excite it. There's nothing more that makes me think harder and makes me see more of the world and makes me think than a game will. Games are the way I know to express myself and how to explain things and enrich my mind to make me come up with better ideas for games I would like to make, and that's why I want to make games. Games will bring out the creativity in people more than any other medium that I've ever seen. Just because you have the freedom to do so, you feel in control of it. There's no real risk to doing anything like that. When you're playing a game, you're making your own story, you're learning about the characters in your own way, you're making your own interpretations. That's why there's so many books, forums, stories online about video game characters, and you feel like you are connected to these characters because you have made these stories about them, or learn different things about them, and that's why developers will hide little secrets or things you gotta search for to learn more about the character's backstory so you feel a part of them. And there's just something about being a gamer is very collective. Just knowing someone's a gamer alongside you just makes me feel a lot more at ease talking to a new person if I know they're a gamer. I know we have at least something to talk about that we are both probably very passionate about, that we both understand. We understand that drive, and that the way they make you feel is basically what I'm talking about. In conclusion, I talked about how the education system needs to change, how video games have become such a big part of our lives and why I think they're going to stick around, and why games are such a great learning tool and how they make the classroom easier for teachers, and kind of what could be an issue with implementing this kind of solution to schools, and how games really bring out your creativity. My name is Kevin Tuckenberg, and thank you for watching.